Alright, once more you are welcome to the Metaphysics and Development channel. As usual, this is Professor Chiedozie Okoro, and today I continue my talk on African Artificial Intelligence, AAI. The essence of today's discourse is to prompt us into a debate, and the debate as what is concerning what is artificial intelligence, why artificial intelligence, and then what is intelligence, and from where does intelligence derive. These are the questions that I'll be looking at. Now, concerning the source of intelligence, if you go back to those humans' activities, human areas of endeavor, human discourses I call psychic science, they will trace the source of intelligence outside the human being. And such will include names like Chukwokikabia, Mamo, Lodumare, Brahman, and so on and so forth. In other words, there is a cosmic intelligence that generated the entire universe. And if you look at it, whether you look at it from the point of view of evolution, protocells being the source of every other living organism on Earth, or the Big Bang theory, you can't escape the question of intelligence. There is intelligence that directed the whole process, either of creation or evolution or the Big Bang. Because if there is no intelligence, there will be no order, there will be no cosmos, there will be no universe. And so, we talk about the universal intelligence and then the structure itself. Particularly when you look at the structure of the Earth, the solar system, and then the galaxies. The arrangement is such that it must be the work of a cosmic intelligence. Now, coming to the question of artificial intelligence, why artificial? By artificial, we mean it is not human, because there are other levels of intelligence. There's plant intelligence, which Aristotle defined as being intuitive. So there is also animal intelligence. Outside us human beings, yes, animal intelligence. And if you look at every other animal, they display degrees of intelligence, from microorganisms to the complex mammals. And if you also look at it from the materialist point of view, you discover that when it comes to measuring what constitutes intelligence, will go back to the brain system of a particular animal. And if you look at the human being, we are said to have the most complex brain, or that our brain is the most developed. And the when you talk about our cranium, its cubic meter is larger. And then I think it's conjectured that we have is it about or above 86 billion brain cells. So it's a complex thing. It's so large that if we take the brain cells and we want to use it to line the earth, round the earth, it will cover the length and breadth of the earth, and some few cells will be left. That's how complex it is. And then it is conjectured that we are using just about 10 or thereabout % of this whole complex cell system. Now, that's one aspect of it. Now, whether we like it or not as well, there's a part of human intelligence that is not material. And if you want, you can go to laboratories that has been established. You have such laboratories in advanced countries whereby you see that there's a psychic dimension to the human being. We can now begin to argue whether this psychic dimension is quasi-physical or physical, insofar as you can subject this aspect of so-called aspect of the human being that does not obey the law of matter, mass, size, location, and so on and so forth. And then scientists have also been able to confirm that there's ether, right, that mystics have spoken about, and it has a different characteristics for solid matter, or matter at the level of gas, liquid, and solid. Now, so there are aspects of the human being that is not entirely material or physical, and that aspect also carries intelligence. And then in any organism, there's a fusion of the two. And when there's a fusion of the two, you discover that it produces another dimension of intelligence. And so if I am to come to my Igbo understanding of Mado, there's a concept of Onwe, self. Now this self consists of Eke, Ago, and Chi. Eke is the power of the mind to bring about manifestation, projecting things out there. Chi is ability of the mind to be futuristic, transcendentalism. Ago is the ability of the mind to collapse both future and past and produce something in the present, manifestation. Then there is the aspect of the human body called Aro, Aho, and we also control from Oboro. Then there's a merger of the two. The merger of the two produces a faculty of the mind called Mfu, imagination. Now, so there's intelligence at 3 levels here. Now, when we say something is artificial, it means we have transferred our human native intelligence into other devices. These devices are made by us. Just like animals also have devices they've made. But whether animals are able to transfer intelligence into what they have made is a different talk. But we are here talking about artificial intelligence. Now, the algorithm we talk about is made after the study of human abilities in the area of sensibility, the brain system, the neurological system. There are other levels of human intelligence that we have not talked about. And to make reference to what my colleague here said, I am one of those who does not believe that you should begin to classify something as Western, Indian. If we want to develop, the simple thing we have to do is to think locally and act globally. In other words, understand our own local genres, inside out. Do SWOT analysis of our abilities. When we do our SWOT analysis of such, we will now find a way of domesticating what we lack. And so, why do I talk like this? I am one of those who does not believe in worshiping artificial intelligence and thinking that we are far behind. Rather, I want us to address the foundation of artificial intelligence, which is human intelligence, the HI. Now, this human intelligence, if we understand it inside out, it has the capacity of producing machines, and not only producing machines, of transferring intelligence into these machines. And like I said one time, if you look at what we call artificial intelligence, is a merger of 2 realms of knowledge, engineering and biology. So the more we understand human intelligence, the more artificial intelligence advances. And so, instead of Africans to remain at the level of consuming the products of artificial intelligence, it behoves on us that we should go back to our traditional conceptions of the human being, Mado. Understand it. Because if you go back, you discover that Prior to today, there were other forms of artificial intelligence in the area of Ogun. Devices that display intelligence were produced by African ancestors. Today, those devices are condemned as voodoo. But there were devices that were made, and these devices displayed intelligence, most especially in the area of satellite and CCTV cameras. You had what you call panpsychism and some engines. Today I call them psychic engines. Some people may call them spiritual engines, but I call them psychic engines. I refuse to use the word spiritual, because once you use the word spirit, it sounds mysterious. People don't want to go near it. But once you use the word psychic, it means it's human who can research into it. Just like if you use the word energy, the word energy bears striking similarity with the word with spirit. But whereas energy can be located, investigated, spirit is said to be mysterious. What is mysterious and you can't investigate? How can it be the source of our foundation of our development? So something that we might not get, something we have to gain from the question of artificial intelligence is that we may have to change our terminologies. So instead of using terminologies that sounds too mystical, too aloof, that brings some kind of awe into human beings, we should quietly distance them and bring in other terminologies that will encourage us to research into them. Because even as an Alpha priest, one thing I have learned in Igbo Alpha is that where there is a voice, there is a soul. So there is nothing like a headless human being talking or a bodiless human being talking. There is no such thing. These are pure human creation of myths. Where there is a voice, there is a soul. And if you go into the study of Dibia Alpha, Dibia is, the description of Dibia is Okaramma de Okarammo. You know that a mo is something you can investigate. We know it. And if we know it, what are the methodologies of investigating it? And we do know that the mo has intelligence, and it is only mo that has that ability to grow, the propensity to grow beyond what it is. All right? So to summarize, if you go to the study of mo in Igbo Dibia, mo is that which has the capacity to instruct Ndo. That which has the capacity to grow. If you go to read this work by Rene Weber, Dialogue with Scientists and Sages, The Search for Unities, Steve Hawkins made a statement. He said, even with zero energy, are you getting it? Matter will still have evolved. Meaning that energy has the propensity to grow beyond what it is. That's intelligence itself. And that's exactly what Igbo mean when it talks about more. I hope you get me. Now, talking about African intelligence, my position is that we should take what we call artificial intelligence, master it, found a foundation in our own cultures. If there is none, we build one. Then we go beyond it to study our system of Ogo and master the methodology of that Ogo. Does it have something different from the algorithm system, what some people call the oracle? Okay? Because I have been reading some works in computer science, and those in computer science are beginning to make comparison between the Python program in the computer system and Alpha divination system, IFA divination system, the binary fission. So when we do this, we will be able to add other dimensions to present-day artificial intelligence that will be our own contribution. It may not be peculiar or unique, but it will be our own contribution to the question of artificial intelligence. Then we will end up not just being users, consumers, we end up being producers, producing something a bit more technical, more advanced, such that before the world understands it, we are developing other things. That way, we can be co-participators on this question of artificial intelligence that is now in vogue in the world. That's just my little take in the matter. Thank you all.
So you're taking us from the physical realm to the metaphysical realm, from our ordinary understanding of artificial intelligence to the dimension that is beyond, our ordinary understanding. And I was about asking, what does that intelligence consist in? We already said intelligence that is non-human, which is a better application of artificial intelligence. Those intelligence that is non-human. By way of summary, so that those that are lost will come down to the table. Let me land finish. So the other one is that the issue of African artificial intelligence. Just by way of summary again, what is that? What is African in that artificial intelligence that makes it African artificial intelligence? And then that transforms intelligence. Then coming to the issue of Alpha, Efa, ROC, Mo, Eleda, Spirit. How do they enhance understanding of artificial intelligence and robotics? And just encapsulate, make it jump so that we can get it and flow.
Well, let's start from the question of artificial intelligence. Like I said, it's artificial because we have transferred it, our abilities, we transferred it into a device. Machine is a device. So we transferred it into a device. And so if you look at machines that are intelligent, what is the central hub, the nucleus of that machine? It is the brain box. There must be a brain. All right? So if you look at what you call African artificial intelligence, what is the hub? More ME, spirit, which entails intelligence.
Like in some, why you call it the spider IC.
Yes.
And the central.
Yes. So if you come into alpha divination, for my investigation, alpha divination follows a symbolic procedure. Because it is symbolic, it makes thinking automatic. You get it? It makes thinking, it has the effect of mathematics, in the sense that when I throw now, Obinabo, Ejiogbe appears, I know what it means automatically. And then you'll find that alpha divination obeys the rules of inference and rules of inference and replacement in logic. So that's why I said we need to go and do in-depth studies of these traditional systems. It will amaze you that everything we are studying in logic, syllogisms, rules of replacement, rules of inference, they are all there, but from a different angle. Okay? It may not be the way Aristotle presented it, or the way Kant presented it, or the way Francis Bacon presented it. It will present a different approach. Because if I throw alpha now, the very first alpha structures, Obinabo Ijiogbe, Akunabo Oyekumeji, Orinabo Iworimeji, and Udinabo Ojimeji, obey the law of rules of replacement. What you can use, that is what it is to the person sitting in front, is what it is to the person behind it. This is what it is by the four corners. It's the same thing. But once you transit that very first four and goes, what you have are rules of inference, because they are application of the first four. So it requires, but if you leave alpha studies, or Ifa studies, to the religious mind, if you ask them how does he operate, they say, oh, that's what their forefathers taught them. In other words, they don't even understand that it is a process of logic and epistemology. They don't understand it. So these are the things that if we do with our contemporary knowledge, because as we are seated here, we have gathered other forms of knowledge that are not traditional. Okay, I use the word traditional because there is a gap in thought between what we used to do 300 years ago and what we know today. From the time of slavery and colonizations, about 150 to 300 years. So what I'm saying is that by standing on what we know today and going backwards, reaching backwards to what our ancestors used to do, that gap that exists in the African mind will be breached. There will be a breach. And so that way we will be able to understand the structure, because one thing people do not know is that in the study of Alpha, metaphysics, logic and epistemology are interfused. You cannot prioritize one over the other. You cannot prioritize metaphysics over logic. Usoro. Ntoala from Usoro. Usoro from Mbaase. Mbaase is the process of unveiling. Alright? They are all ensconced. Why? Because in this study of Ihe, which is thing, reality, there is no way you are going to study that reality without the Usoro, the structure, the system of that thing. And so the metaphysics and the logic and the epistemology are all interlocked. So you see that thing that Anyang calls interpretability of forces. And if you go into our system, the cyclical system, once you impose the equilateral triangle in the cycle, you discover that our notion of past, present, and future is not linear but cyclical. The thing there is that in the cyclical structure, past is not behind, future is not in front, and present is not timing. If I'm standing in the present in a cyclical system with the equilateral triangle imposed, it means I am immediately within the cyclical dimension connected to past and present. Immediately. Then you begin to understand Momo's philosophy of the new past and an old future. Because the same thing, so it means that for us as Africans, when we are looking at issues, we are not looking at it from a linear dimension. So our approach to the binary complementarity is not linear, but cyclical. And so these are dimensions that we can bring into artificial intelligence if we go back to study our system using contemporary measure. It is not something all of us will agree on, but there will be scholars that will go into it to tear it apart. There will be scholars that go into it with mentality of conserving it. But it is allowed. Once we go into that tradition, both a debate is a debate. Those who are for, those who are against, and then we tie the middle. In the process, we will come up with something new. That's my own take.
Professor Okoro's esoteric metaphysical postulation from high heaven to earth, I want to say one or two things. First and foremost, his argument that there is intelligence behind the cosmos of the universe. He did not start on an appropriate note by making clearly what intelligence is, because he probably presumed that we know it. We need to be clear about what intelligence is first, before we can even debate rationally whether there is a cosmic intelligence behind the cosmos, and also whether what is artificial about intelligence systems that are trending today. Of course, I know that in the literature, the idea of intelligence is very controversial, just like every important concept in every field of study. However, I believe that one of the hallmarks of intelligent behavior, whether in machines or human, is organized behavior towards an achievable goal. There's a teleology. There is teleology in every intelligent behavior. But I must tell him that I disagree with him completely on the notion that behind every rational order there must be intelligence system. No, it's not correct, because it's been shown completely, clearly, that indeed the universe itself could be eternal. Does not need any intelligent thing to bring it into being, because that intelligent thing needs also a justification which also takes us to the vicious circle of the cosmological argument. Now, the truth of the matter, like I keep saying, is this. I remember when I was being interviewed, somebody was talking about African science. I said, no, that's a derogatory notion. That when you say African science, you are saying, what they are describing invariably are systems, knowledge systems and practices that originated in Africa. And they are usually classified as spiritual, this and that. But I argue that those things you are calling African science exist in every part of this world. In India, in the West, every part of the world had all those things you call African science. But scientific methodology is a universal concept. You cannot geographize it, so to speak. You cannot ascribe it. The Western science thing is usually a pedagogic, hegemonic concept to tell us, oh, we are Western science, we are superior to you, African. No. Once you use African to qualify artificial intelligence, that derogatory notion that attaches to anything African also begins to, infect it. Let me finish now. My own attitude is very simple. Let us, if there is anything worth pursuing in our indigenous knowledge systems, let those who are interested in it, drawn across disciplines, pursue it and bring results. Because when you talk about artificial, you are seeing the results in every gamut of human life. You tell somebody, we have African intelligence, okay, African artificial intelligence. The next question is, okay, where is it applied? What are the results? Because there's a pragmatic core to knowledge system. It's not just about understanding the world. It is also about intervening in natural processes, in the flow of phenomena to satisfy human needs and all that. So my own view is very, very simple. Whatever metaphysical system, whether Africa, India, whatever, that wants to answer artificial intelligence, I don't have much problem with that. But I will still say that when a particular knowledge system, when a particular practice has been developed, consolidated, and is repeatable, we can see the results of those things in human activity, both in our private lives, official lives, factories, whatever. What matters is the pragmatic value. What is it do? What are the concrete results? What can we have this problem, climate change, for example, or like the lady discussed, infertility issues. We have the issue of escalating conflict in the world. Practical problems. How do we apply that African artificial? How does it even differ from?
Can I just give one simple answer so that we can move on? Because see how your own is simple.
No, my own will be very short. Okay, just.
Yeah, so the question of intelligence, it has to do, you have defined it. Intelligence has to do, first and foremost, the power to organize, the power to project, and so the power of transcendence. Transcendence in the sense that it is problem posing and problem solving. And every time we solve problems, anytime we bring about solutions, new problems arise. And so we are always forward moving. And so that's why for me, I do not agree with Martin Heidegger when he says the problem of science is that of causality and instrumentality, because the universe in itself is intelligent. So when you say the universe is eternal, it does not need an intelligence behind it. What I didn't say, I said my own argument, if you listen, I said whether you say it is creation story. For creation story, the problem with creation story, it thinks about intelligence behind intelligence. But evolution theory and Big Bang theory talk about the universe being intelligent.